Well, everyone, we finally have news of the upcoming banners for FLins and Ineffa, so let's take a look at them and give them an overall rating. So we got FLins and Lan Yan, Aino, and Iansan, and then of course Ineffa with the same 4 stars. The weapons are both of the 5-star signature weapons with Stringless, Flute, Eye Perception, Fav Lance, and Fav Greatsword. Okay, interesting. Well, let's talk about the character banner first. In my review video, I was talking about both FLins and Ineffa, and I said if you're a newer player and just kind of concerned with getting a really good character that will carry you for a long time, that'll work very well in the end game, but maybe not necessarily be great against a lot of the random shill bosses that are going to come out with the stellar characters. Ineffa is a really good choice as an off-field damage dealer, a shield character, and someone who just works well in a ton of different teams. So this banner kind of helps with that too. Everyone can get Aino for free, but copies of her are useful, particularly her C2. C4 making her burst cost a lot less energy is also very helpful. And then the C6 for more damage percent is also pretty nice. Lan Yan's a great character to have because she's a shield character as well. She's definitely not as useful as Ineffa. Her shield can be very strong, but she doesn't provide any real damage, although she is a catalyst character, so she can hold the thrilling tales of dragon slayers, and that is a pretty nice boost for any of your attack scaling characters that want a shield, like Arlecchino. So very nice character there too. There are also people that like to play DPS Lan Yan because they find that a lot of fun. I am personally much more in the support lane for Lan Yan, but you know, she is also a character that if you do want to run her as a DPS, you can. And then Iansan is really good for any character that moves a lot, particularly Mawika and Varessa. Her C6 is also super nice for those characters. In general, pretty nice banners. Lan Yan is nice for a character like FLins if you can't run Sucrose for some reason, or if you really want FLins but you don't have any defensive support. If you drop Sucrose and lose a lot of the EM bonuses but you want the shield as a trade-off, she can be a decent option there. Iansan doesn't really do much for FLins. He does do his little jumps, but he's not moving fast enough to constantly keep up her buff. And then copies of Aino are decent for him, just so he has a little bit more hydro support, because characters like Xingqiu don't work the best with him because Xingqiu has longer cooldowns. So using Aino, who number 1 will allow for Ascendant Gleam, which is what you really need with FLins, and 2 has shorter cooldowns, just pairs a lot better with him in general. If you're wishing for this banner for Ineffa, the characters here are pretty decent overall. Lan Yan is a little more of a general support, Iansan is a little more niche, and then Aino is generally pretty good for any of the lunar characters, whether that's Ineffa or FLins, or anyone like any other lunar damage dealer that you want, like Shabai or Nefer or something like that. Pretty good to have overall. If you are considering wishing on these banners just because of the 4 stars, I would generally not do that unless your pity is really low. And if your pity is really low and you're considering wishing on them, then if you've got a guarantee and you're saving that, it's probably not worth it. If your pity's really low, statistically, you're not going to get a 5-star. It could definitely still happen, but if you want to play the odds, then you could say, all right, I'll try to do a few wishes to see if I'm going to get a copy of a character that I really want or a constellation that's really important. If you've got like 2 to 3 constellations away from like a C6, if you're like C3 Iansan or like C3 Lan Yan or like C3 Aino, it's probably not worth wishing for you because the chances that you get the characters you want are actually pretty low, and you're not going to get them in like 3 unless for some reason you just get a bunch of doubles. So if you're considering wishing on these banners for the 4 stars, also don't do that unless you want copies of the 5 stars or wouldn't mind having copies of the 5 stars. If you've got like a guarantee and you're saving for the Sarita or something like that, or some future character, then it's probably not worth trying to go for these characters. So these banners are not too bad. If you were a newer player, I think they have pretty good value, especially if you're going for the Ineffa banner, and if you do end up wanting someone in the future who could utilize someone like Iansan, because we have characters like Malika, who's still pretty crazy, and until we get a pyro character that does more than that, she's kind of going to be the premier pyro character. And then Lan Yan is also just a useful shield character. She can hold Viridescent, she can hold the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers, so she's got a nice amount of support capability as well. So generally pretty decent banners. Unfortunately for a character like FLins, you kind of have to have someone like Aino. There's not really any other good 4-star choices for him. The only other real 4-star character you could put on here would be Yehoda, but Yehoda is really weird to use and not exactly very fun to use in really any team. So having Aino here for the Ascendant Gleam and just getting constellations on her is honestly better than having someone like Yehoda. Now let's move on to the weapon banners. First of all, both of these weapons are pretty decent for both Ineffa and FLins, but they're not really necessary. If you wanted to invest more into FLins or Ineffa, it'd be better to get other characters. So if you were like, I want a stronger team with Ineffa, instead of getting her weapon, it would be a lot better to get Columbina. And if you wanted a stronger FLins, rather than using his weapon, it would be a lot better to get his C1, because that allows him to use his mini burst 3 times per rotation instead of 2. That's a huge damage increase for him. The main thing that the weapon gives him is just energy back, which means his energy recharge is really not very difficult to meet. If you're running double Electro, which you generally should with FLins, it's usually not pretty hard to meet his energy recharge requirements either. So both these weapons are nice, and if the 4 stars were worth it, I'd say it'd be a decent banner to wish on, but honestly they're not. The best weapon here by far is the Fav Lance. Almost every spear character in the game wants the Fav Lance or could use the Fav Lance, and it would be helpful for them. The rest of the weapons are just all random standard banner weapons, and they're not really that helpful. Stringless can be pretty good, and the Fav Greatsword can be pretty good even though it's got low base attack. There's not as many characters that want the Fav Greatsword as there are characters that would appreciate something like the Fav Lance. So if the stat lines were a little bit different, it might be more valuable. Unfortunately, the low base attack does kind of hold it back from a lot of characters really wanting it. And then the flute and the eye perception are both pretty bad. So I would say don't wish on this weapon banner. It's really not worth it for you. Save your primos, and if you did want to invest into Ineffa or FLins more, I would go for either good characters to pair with. So if you're interested in FLins and wanted to get his weapon, it's way better to get Ineffa. If you already have Ineffa and want a stronger FLins, I would try to get FLins as C1 and either get a better spear from just crafting, or if you get a Jadewing spear from the standard banner or something like that, I would just use that on him. This weapon banner, definitely a trap. Unless you were just getting Fav Lance after Fav Lance after Fav Lance, which statistically is not very likely, then it's just going to be a drain on your Primo gems. So, I'm not a fan of that. But overall, character banner is pretty good if you are considering going for either the banners with Odette or with Ineffa and looking at the overall value. Alosia is nice for any stellar conduct teams. Sucrose is very nice but doesn't really need any constellations, and you can get her for free already, so really all you need is her C1. And then Lynette is really just not very useful overall, but if you are wishing on this banner, you're just really wishing for Odette and trying to get her for any of the new upcoming endgame things and a lot of the stellar damage shield that is very, very likely to come in all of Stygian Onslaughts and the Abyss and Imaginarium Theater. But if you're newer and just want a really useful character that will carry you through to the end game and be very strong even outside of that, then I would recommend going for Ineffa instead. Those are some considerations for you. And if you are newer and wanting Odette more than Ineffa, she'll still be very good for you for quite a long time, as she is a nice stellar damage buffer, and you can use the Cryo Traveler with her and still have a very strong team. So generally, pretty solid banners if you're wishing for the characters. If you're wishing for the weapons, don't. TLDR. And if you are still undecided about these, because these are the second phase banners, keep in mind that we'll have the 7.1 live stream preview, which should also coincide with the anniversary and all the anniversary events, so we can make a decision on any special reruns we have, like if they do any sort of Chronicle banner or anything like that, and if there's someone who you really want in the patch afterwards, then just wait and see what's coming up in the next version update, and we can make a better assessment on whether these banners are better for you now or if the upcoming banners would be better. So just some things to keep in mind with wishing. If you are someone who's not really sure, kind of on the fence, it's good to just wait for a little while. Once we have more information about the upcoming banners, then we can make a decision. If you are wishing, I hope that whoever you're going for comes home early. Hope you win your 50/50s, and may your polls be blessed in the name of the gills and of the jaws and of the fins.